Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today we're talking again about purity culture, but this time we're talking about purity culture and its impact on the LGBTQIA plus community, specifically on the enhancing of the idea that heterosexuality is compulsory and expected, and therefore leading to a giant amount of internalized homophobia. Real quick, definition-wise, internalized homophobia is when you've internalized the messages that are homophobic in nature. Compulsory heterosexuality is the assumption that heterosexuality is mandatory for humans, aka we are made to be straight and married. And then purity culture is the idea that you are made for sex with someone of the opposite sex, and keeping yourself pure until marriage is God's design for your body, your mind, and your life. It's important to remember that within purity culture, part of the problematic messaging that came out to people was, for guys, their brains, their minds, their things that they think and the ways that they respond to things were dirty and gross and icky and to be avoided. And then for girls, their bodies, their kind of their very beings as a person were those things that would lead the men to those dirty, icky thoughts. And so they also must be hidden. But the thing that translated to for a lot of girls out there was that their bodies were their primary sources of anything. The primary things that people knew or thought or felt or assumed about them came from their bodies and the way they presented themselves. It wouldn't matter what the woman was saying or doing or the relationship even that she had with the guy. It was sold as men naturally see this and think this no matter what. And so girls should never, ever, ever allow that to be seen except by the person who is inherently allowed to think that way about them. And so on some level, that translates to
men, your thoughts are perverse and gross, but you can always change them or focus on a different thing.
But women, you are who you are. You have the body that you have. And except for covering it up and hiding yourself, you can't do anything to change that. So who you are is bad.
That also conversely led to the assumption for girls that all other women are competition. You are in competition for the men's attention. You're in competition for who can be the most worthy of the man's attention. But also, by the way, it's never about what you have going on in your brain or your personality that's worthy of the man's attention, because the bottom line is the eye catches it first. Another aspect of purity culture that really does lead to a fair amount of sexual dysfunction and confusion and anger and problems, honestly, in relationships is the assumption that you are supposed to flee from anything sexual in any way, thoughts, feelings, anything that may tempt you, and then still also find someone to marry and then marry. And once you're married, then you can absolutely have sex, and you should have sex, because that is the benefit to getting married, is you're allowed to have sex. Couple of reasons that's problematic, okay? In order to stop yourself from thinking about something that is completely natural for you to think about, you have to assign a negative meaning to it. And so you spend years and years and years assigning a negative meaning to thoughts or feelings that you have. And after that, you're supposed to be, okay, it's great, it's fine now. We all know, with what we know about psychology and about the human brain, that doesn't work. So because that doesn't work, we just sort of leave people hanging there with their thoughts and guilt and shame about their sexual natures because we want to stop them from doing it before marriage. So many times within evangelical Christianity, connected to purity culture, women are being told that if you want to keep your husband, you must have sex with him. If you do not have sex with him, you cannot blame him for straying, because the man is a sexual creature in nature and needs that. So if you don't do it, he will find it somewhere else. These also are ideas that are rooted in purity culture. Back to compulsory heterosexuality, again, there is no encouragement, no understanding, no expectation of developing a deep and abiding emotional connection with a person within purity culture. You may disagree with this, but follow the logic for me. If you can have no thoughts, no feelings, no inclination or anything towards sex before you are married, how can you possibly explore or understand what you want and what you're attracted to? How would you be able to pick a mate? This is where the purity culture thing gets super weird, because many people are not aware that this whole purity culture, promise ring, stay pure until marriage, this whole idea was actually girls pledging to their fathers that they were not going to give themselves to a man until marriage. Implicit in that is that the father would pick the man. And in there, also implicit is that that's because the girl is worth less if she engages sexually with someone else before marrying. Where this connects with comphet, with compulsory heterosexuality, is the assumption that gay sex doesn't count as sex. I've talked before about straight couples where the man says,
yes, wife, I understand that you are attracted to girls also. Totally cool. Just make sure I'm there.
Or,
it's not cheating as long as you're not kissing another woman or another man.
these ideas, these assumptions of what is sex and what is not sex and what is cheating and is not cheating could be what someone is comfortable with. If that is actually the authentic rules that they've put into their marriage, that's super cool. Awesome. I don't care. The problem is, more often than not, it's because the partner is not seeing sex with the same sex as cheating because it doesn't count. If it doesn't count, then what do you actually think of people in the LGBTQIA plus community? Because that's the sex they're having. If that connection doesn't count, what are you saying about an entire group of people? Are you saying their sex doesn't count? Are you saying their relationships don't count? The heteronormativity and the implicit compulsory heterosexuality that is in those statements is so daunting to me to think about how to eliminate those from our society. I have no idea how we do that. And as you know, I have an opinion on everything. The devaluing of gay sex is not where comphet and purity culture stop in their damage to those in the queer community. There's also the understanding that any deviation from heteronormativity, any deviation from the understanding that you are who your doctor says you are when you are born and you continue to be that way and you will marry and you will have kids, any deviation at all, if it's a chosen deviation, which many people who are caught in purity culture and who intentionally subscribe to comphet will tell you that they think that this is a choice. They think people are making a choice to be attracted to who they're attracted to. Any deviation from that norm also comes with a removal of supports. You are no longer welcome in the circles and the groups that you used to be. If you are in a church setting and that church is not affirming in its theology, you are no longer in that church setting, or they'll maybe go so far as to say you can be here, you can give your money, but you can't lead. We take you out of leadership positions because you're living a sinful lifestyle. The understanding that everyone is born and is naturally heterosexual is incorrect. Bottom line. On top of that, it is harmful to people for whom that is not true. For non-heterosexual people, for non-cisgender people, because we haven't even gotten to cis-normativity. That's another video. To non-heterosexual people, that is number one, offensive, and number two, devaluing. In the same way that purity culture for many years has been to women, and to men, by the way. Again, a different video. But the longer we engage in this idea that purity is to be strived for and that purity is a gift from God, and continue to define purity as staying away from all things that are tempting until marriage, the longer compulsory heterosexuality, heteronormativity, and therefore internalized homophobia will be existing in the lives of queer people. We can stop doing that, but it takes a lot of conscious understanding, decision-making, and work, honestly, by people in the sexual majority. And I don't know if they're ready for that. I hope so. But I don't know. What do you think? That's it for today. It has in fact been suggested that my videos are a tad too long, and so we're gonna try to make them shorter and see how that goes. Make sure that you subscribe, hit the bell, throw a comment up there, let me know what you think of this or other topics you want me to cover. I will see you again soon. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.